If I traded it all, if I gave it.
So welcome back, everyone. My next guest has never been on my show before. I have with me Tony Freeman, and he is the owner of Freeman Law, the Freeman Law Firm. Welcome to the show.
Why, thanks, Carol. It's great to be here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. I practiced law for over 30 years. I'm licensed here in Arizona and California. I've got offices here in Scottsdale and one up in Flagstaff as well. My area of practice is business law. That's the focus of what I enjoy doing, and deal with all types of real estate and contracts and help clients through their formation of business entities and deal with the problems and the litigation that arises from those.
Well, it's a good time to come on because not only there are a lot of people, obviously, that are in business that have issues that come up, but also there's a lot of people today that are starting new businesses that, you know, especially this is the new year, and they're all starting up right now. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you offer your clients. Go ahead.
Sure. Particularly with new businesses, I mean, we have the chance to actually have a greater impact. Earlier guests on the show were talking about preventative maintenance, and that's one of the big things that I like to preach as well, because the more we can be involved up front, that will minimize risk down the road. We have situations, particularly forming a new business, it's not uncommon for a couple of guys to get together, a couple of ladies to get together. They want to go pursue the business. They're excited about doing the business things. They form an entity, but they really don't ever put on writing in paper and say what their agreement is and what happens if something's going to go wrong, or if there's a dispute over who can use money or who can make a decision. And once you're in a mess, it's tough to unwind, and it gets expensive. If you take the time up front and invest a little money and work with an attorney to document what happens, you can save yourself a lot of heartache down the road. I mean, unfortunately, when people go in and say, hey, we're going to be 50-50 partners, I get it, it makes sense, but with 50-50, you'll have an absolute deadlock. Nobody can decide if neither party agrees. So unless you have documented a way to solve that problem, and there are ways to address it, one party can buy out the other. There are other mechanisms that we can address. If you don't have those, you're setting yourself up for a fall. And I mean, I know it's almost like a prenup agreement that people don't want to have to talk about the legal issues or what could go wrong when they're all excited, but it's well worth the time to work through those things, and it doesn't have to be combative. You know, one of the other issues we see a lot is people getting excited about getting into agreements, and they don't necessarily document things well, and maybe documents don't get signed even though they're prepared. They're attachments to emails that they've circulated, but they never really finalize the documents. And unless they deal with it before a problem arises, it's much tougher to get signatures if parties aren't doing well than when they're happy and excited about jumping into a venture.
And, you know, as much as you don't want to think about it, the negative side of it, I mean, if you're going to go into a business venture with somebody, it is extremely important that you make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not with somebody, you should.
That's right.
And there's a lot of people that are sole owners now, that and not just now, but obviously we've had them forever, but especially now it seems like, you know, that even if you're by yourself, there's things that you need to make sure that you take care of, like certainly what?
Oh, well, I mean, using that example, I mean, asset protection is vitally important. If you have gotten yourself into a business, but you're doing it on your own without an entity, for example, you're exposing all your personal assets to something that could go wrong at the business. We strongly recommend that if you're going to form a new business, you form an entity to operate that business from, to isolate that liability and maintain it within a certain entity. Again, having your contracts be in the entity name, you know, following those guidelines will give you protection, allow you to operate your business, but also give you the ability to protect your private assets, your home, your bank accounts, those things.
Okay, now you you have two different offers. You have the choice of a small business planning session or an individual legal checkup. What is that?
So, as a result of having experienced a lot of people, having seen where people haven't updated their documents or have overlooked things about getting documents signed, I came up with this program to what I call a legal checkup. It's like going to the doctor every year to make sure everything's working right. People will fill out, when they fill out their will or trust, and they'll normally fill out a power of attorney for health care and financial reasons. Normally they'll sign those documents, put them in a file, and never look at them again. Well, if the person you named was your wife or your best friend and you got a divorce, or your best friend got in a fight and moved away or has passed away, if you're incapacitated, you're in a car accident, you can't make decisions, your documents won't help you. And so having a legal checkup on a regular basis gives us a chance to go over those things with you and make sure the documents are there to protect you.
Okay.
And so
I just want to make sure that this is a business legal checkup.
there's an individual legal checkup is what we're offering.
Okay.
We have a business legal checkup as well, but the business planning session is a half-hour consultation to go over the different types of business arrangements available, LLC, limited liability companies, corporations, the advantages and disadvantages of those, and some of the important steps to think about when you're going to form a new business. So it's a chance to come in, and it's a flat fee, and we offer those opportunities for folks to come in.
And this is a $300 value. It's free to them. So what we're gonna do is offer everybody to get. Is it entered into win? We'll just go ahead and do it like that, or how do you want to do it? That's fine. And again, our number here is 602-277-5369, and toll free it's 1-866-536-1100. Just the consultation alone. I mean, to me, it's worth. I would think if you're starting a business, I don't care whether you're doing it as a sole proprietor or not, have this consultation, find out what you need to do, and then if there's things that need to do, he can help you with that.
Absolutely.
Now, you're located, you've got two locations. One is in Scottsdale, the other one is in Flagstaff.
That's correct.
And though you can help anyone from anywhere?
Absolutely. We can handle anybody throughout the state. That's the beauty of having both offices, gives us a lot of flexibility. Minimize
your risk with Freeman Law.
Indeed.
And the number to call him is area code 480-398-3100. So it's 480-398-3100. And we also have the website, which is freemanlawfirm.com, and our number here is 602-277-5369, and toll free it's 1-866-536-1100. You got a choice of either the small business planning session or an individual legal checkup. Yep. Our number here is 602-277-5369. Risk avoidance. Risk avoidance. That's so important for people. Preventative maintenance. As you're going along, you should have somebody like you go to you often to go over some of the things, because things change all the time. Is that what it is?
That's what it is, and staying current with your documents is really important, and things do change. And my goal, frankly, is to have clients not have to come see me when there's a problem, because we've already helped them address it. So it's trying to be ahead of that curve. And by setting their business operations up correctly and by taking steps to protect their assets initially, then we can minimize the risk that they're going to have a substantial problem down the road.
What's the number one thing that you find that's something that everybody does right off the bat wrong, that they do wrong?
I think I don't know that they do wrong. They just don't understand how they could protect their assets with little work and protect them and provide for future generations. So, I mean, what happens is I think a lot of people, again, will go get a will and a trust done, and that's to avoid probate. But it doesn't protect their assets from creditors. And, one of the bad examples that really brought this to my attention was a couple had worked their whole life, had paid off the mortgages, and had set themselves up well. And they had a son who had some financial problems, and they bought a car for him. They kept it in his name, or their name. He was involved in an accident with catastrophic injuries, and they were sued because they owned the car. And their entire net worth was put at risk. That didn't need to happen. They were just trying to make a nice gesture for their kids. And we have ways to help avoid that, but people need to know about it.
Well, if you're starting a business, if you're in business, there's one thing that you need to do is to minimize your risk, and that is the most important thing that you should do. And we've got our lines open here. You can call in at 602-277-5369. Everybody's getting their choice of a small business planning session or an individual legal checkup. It's a $300 value. 602-277.
If I traded it all, if I gave it.
Welcome back. We are talking with Tony Freeman, and he is the owner of Freeman Law Firm. We're talking business. Business, there's contracts, so many things that are involved when you start a business.
Yep.
Okay. And, of course, when you start a business with somebody else, you can have some disputes. And you kind of want to talk a little bit about that right now and what people should do about approaching, handling disputes.
Business disputes are going to happen. People disagree. And, again, trying to work out a pathway to solve those up front is very helpful from my perspective, just for running their business and to avoid the need to get attorneys involved. Again, I would love it if my clients didn't have to come see me on a regular basis. The goal would be to help them operate smoothly. Business disputes are, in my mind, a factor of, risk reward and cost versus benefit. Sometimes fighting over old issues is not a productive exercise, and I'm a big believer in trying to reach a resolution quickly, even it may not be the perfect resolution, because I find with my clients, if I can solve a problem for them and put them on a positive path to go deal with their good business issues, 6 months from now, they won't remember that, and they'll be much happier, because business disputes and the stress related to them can really bring people down, and that's a heavy burden. And it's also not necessarily the most productive use of their resources to pay attorneys to fight those battles. Not saying to walk away from an issue, but trying to find a creative way to get to a head quickly so that people can move on with their lives and be able to focus on positive issues. So that's my approach to handling business disputes.
Now, you have two offices. One is in Scottsdale. The other one is in Flagstaff. You can call them at area code 480-398-3100. And the website is freemanlawfirm.com. And we've got our lines open here for everyone to call in and get themselves either. You've got a choice. The choices of what was it here? We have the small business planning session or an individual legal checkup. It's a document review.
Yep.
And also that includes the half-hour consultation. That's a $300 value free to you. I think it's invaluable for anybody who is already in business with somebody. Maybe you want to talk to them about something. Maybe something's coming up. You smell something going on, Or if you're starting a new business right now, whether you're not, again, you do not have to be in partnership with somebody in order to come with him. You can be a sole practitioner, and he will help you and talk to you about some of the things that you need to look out for to protect yourself with starting a new business. So it's a $300 value free to you. Our number here is 602-277-5369, and toll-free it's 1-866-536-1100. What are some of the important topics, then, that you address with your clients?
I think it is when they're dealing with their business issues, it is what can we do to structure their lives to protect what they've developed and earned over their time, and to put in a system that will effectively protect them going forward.
How about people that are getting in business with people that they're married to?
That's a tough one.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, that always poses a challenge, and it poses in terms of, how to document things. And again, it makes it even more important to focus on what happens if those two aren't together anymore and what happens at the business. So the more of a conversation you can have up front to incorporate solutions to those problems or situations, the better off you're going to be down the road, because at least everybody knows where they stand. Well,
the other thing that I want to find out, too, from you, there's so many people out there, I don't know whether it matters or not, so I'm just going to ask. I'm that person out there that's listening, right?
Yep.
Number one, does it matter what kind of business that I'm going to come to you and say, here, I'm thinking of starting this business, I'm starting a business? Does it matter what kind?
It really doesn't. I mean, depending on the options available for business formation, I mean, there aren't that many choices. And so depending on what type of business it is, I mean, there could be licensing issues or things like that that could be addressed. But in terms of the formation, it really doesn't matter.
Okay. Another thing, a lot of people have more than one now. Okay? Yep. Let's talk about that. And how about anybody that is doing either an in-home base or anything like that? I'm just asking you questions. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So, it's our recommendation that for each separate business you're operating, that you have a separate entity to operate it in. Again, to minimize the risk of exposure of your personal assets to those from the business. And, it's also better in terms of if you are going to develop a business that you might be able to sell, you don't want to have to kind of pull apart the assets from your other operations to be able to sell it. It's much cleaner to have a standalone entity for each operation.
That's another thing to bring up, too, because there's a lot of people that don't realize that when they're starting a business, and I'm going to use me as an example. I mean, I had no idea what was going to happen. I just started,
Yep.
And most people do that, right?
Exactly, yep.
And then the next thing you know, it's rolling, it's going, you're excited, you're going, and 20 years later...
There you have it.
Right?
Yep.
But the other thing is that there are things that you need to have in place that are very important that you may not even know that you need to do.
That's right. And I think, too, in the excitement of starting a business, a lot of times you'll sign agreements, you'll sign a lease agreement, you'll sign other promissory notes. And having an understanding of what those mean and what kind of rights are in those, because it's not uncommon to have options to extend. A lot of people don't calendar those dates, and they'll miss them. And so, again, that's part of the goal of the legal checkup, is to kind of go through those and remind people, hey, you've got this option coming up, so that they have it on their radar to be able to utilize. And they're in there for a reason, and, some contracts provide for irregular payments. You want to make sure those are on your radar so you don't default under an obligation.
How about people that get into buying franchises? Do you help people with that too?
Absolutely.
Got to ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I mean...
See how my mind works? Go ahead.
People do that a lot. And again, same concept. You want to, if you're going to do that acquisition, we would recommend that you do it through an entity that's designed just for that purpose, so that you capture all the responsibility there. One
of the most important things that I think that you said is, and I don't think that people realize it, many of us don't anyway, that your assets, your personal assets can be affected by your business. You think that's separate, but if it's not done legally, you said that they can come after you.
That's right. And so if you have a sole proprietorship, everything you own essentially is at risk for business liability. By having a separate entity, you've minimized the risk of that liability. I mean, certainly there are personal guarantees and things, but at least you know about those. In terms of the entity structure, there's a far better tool to use to protect yourself, and they are not that hard, particularly with LLCs now. I mean, there's no annual reporting requirements, and they are very flexible in terms of design and structure. So we find them to be great tools.
And do you help people in that? Well, because another thing is there's different things. There's not just an LLC. There's there others? There's many other
corporations,
things. Right.
Professional limited liability companies.
And it's so important for you to talk to somebody. But again, this would be, as you're forming your business, is what's best for you, because then you got to then deal with your taxes. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. And I was just going to say, one of the other important parties at the table should be the accountant. And I work with a lot of accountants of my clients to make sure we are addressing both the best tax consequences and the legal structure.
I think that's what it's all about. I know
essential.
For me, I had started off with one way, and then they had said, you know what, you really should do this, and we had to change it because of that, because of whatever.
Absolutely. No, and that's not uncommon at all. And so, again, the more we can be involved up front, I think it really helps make things go more smoothly down the line.
And we have our lines open here, and everyone who's calling in, you are offering them the choice of either the business planning session or the individual legal checkup. This is a document review, and it comes along with the half-hour consultation.
That's correct.
And this is a $300 value free to you. Our number here is 602-277-5369. And toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. And I'm going to let you keep on calling throughout the rest of the show for this. And if it's not for you or you know somebody, that's another thing about this. It's networking. It does make a difference. No, but really, if you know somebody who's doing, you may want to give them this information. It's a consultation. You find out what it is that you need to do. At that point, you can find out whether or not you may need to do more.
That's right.
And especially if you've got going into business with someone else too. Obviously, there's going to be disputes. And you know what? It may not be right now, but down the line, something can happen.
It's always a risk. And anytime you have two different people involved, I mean, people have disagreements. So
Always.
Yes, always, no matter how good it is.
And especially if you're married.
Especially if you're married, yes.
Okay, what are your final words?
I just ask folks out there to be proactive with their legal situation. Get a checkup. Get an understanding of where you are with your documents, and be proactive about protecting yourself.
Right. It is all about being proactive and making sure that you minimize your risk. That's what he wants you to do. And I'm going to let you call throughout the rest of the show. You're getting either the choice of a small business planning session. Love that. Also, the individual legal checkup. Important. All of these things are important. Whether you're in business now with somebody, you're starting a business, whether you're going with somebody else, or you're doing it on your own, in home or not, give him a call. His number is area code 480-398-3100. It's freemanlawfirm.com, or call us at 602-277-5369.